You know, what if getting healthier wasn't about adding a ton of complicated new things to your life, but about, well, just taking a few things away? Today, we're going to dig into that exact idea, exploring the principles of temperance and rest. From a lecture by health advocate Barbara Oneill, we'll look at her arguments for what to avoid, what to embrace, and how different kinds of rest can totally rejuvenate the body.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll start with this core idea she calls temperance. Then, we'll get into our never list, the things she says to eliminate completely. After that, we'll dive into the power of rest, both for your brain and your stomach. And finally, we'll tie it all together into one big health philosophy. So, let's get started.
All right, let's dive right into the core concept that really holds everything else together. Oneill calls it the principle of temperance, and it's a super simple but really powerful place to start.
So temperance is defined with a pretty straightforward two-part rule. The first part is all about avoidance. Just don't put things in your body that are going to cause harm. Simple enough, right? But the second part is about balance. Even the good stuff, whether it's food or exercise or even work, needs to be done in moderation. This idea really sets the stage for everything else.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of that first rule, avoiding the things that cause harm. The source material has what you could call a never list. These are substances Oneill argues should be cut out completely for you to be at your best. And it starts with some stuff that's, well, pretty common. First up on the list is refined sugar. And the way it's described in the source is, wow, pretty intense. It's not called a food, it's called a pure crystallized acid. Oneill even draws a parallel between its refinement process and the relationship between the poppy plant and heroin, arguing that taking something natural and refining it down to its pure chemical form makes it incredibly harmful. So why is it considered so bad? Well, the argument is that refined sugar sends your blood glucose through the roof. Your body sees this as a crisis, and your pancreas floods your system with insulin to deal with it, but it overcorrects, causing a crash, which is another crisis. So you end up on this constant roller coaster of highs and lows instead of having the steady, reliable energy your body was actually designed for. Now check this out, because this is a really surprising piece of data from the source. It's about hybridized wheat. You would think, right, that pure white sugar would have a much higher glycemic index, that's how fast a food spikes your blood sugar, than, say, a healthy piece of wholemeal bread. But look at the numbers. White sugar is at 59, while wholemeal bread is actually higher at 72.
So how in the world is that possible? Well, Oneill points to a specific type of starch called amylopectin A, which is apparently really common in modern hybridized wheat. And here's the kicker. She argues that because wholemeal bread is less refined, it actually has more of this starchy compound than white bread does, which leads to an even faster and higher spike in blood sugar. That's a huge deal if you think you're making the healthier choice.
Okay, next on the never list is caffeine. Now, according to the source, the whole effect of caffeine boils down to how it messes with your brain chemistry. See, we all have this chemical called adenosine. It builds up all day long and is what makes you feel sleepy. It's basically your body's natural brake pedal. What caffeine does is it swoops in and blocks the receptors for adenosine. It literally cuts your brake lines. But it doesn't stop there. Caffeine also apparently gives you a quick boost of acetylcholine, which is crucial for brain function. But you guessed it, that's followed by a crash. On top of that, it burns through your supply of dopamine, that feel-good hormone for motivation and reward, which can just leave you feeling exhausted and needing more. The source argues that all of this adds up to a pretty significant chemical imbalance in the brain.
All right, so we've talked a lot about what to avoid. Let's switch gears and talk about what to embrace. And we're going to start with one of the most powerful tools we all have for rejuvenation, a good night's sleep, and what's really going on inside our bodies when we're resting.
This here is what Oneill calls the hours of power. It's this critical window from about 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. when your body is in full-on repair mode. The source says that during this time, your pineal gland releases this incredible sequence of hormones. It kicks off with serotonin for your mood, then arginovesitocin for deep, pain-relieving sleep. Around midnight, you get epithalamin for learning and anti-aging, and the whole cycle peaks around 2 a.m. with melatonin, the ultimate fix and rejuvenate hormone. So here's the really important part. Our daily choices have a direct impact on this whole nightly repair cycle. Things like laughter, getting some sun during the day, exercise, and sleeping in total darkness can all boost the production of these hormones. But on the other hand, things like worry, alcohol, caffeine, and especially the blue light from our screens at night can seriously shut down the production of all this good stuff.
Okay, so we've talked about resting the brain.
Now let's talk about resting another vital organ that, let's be honest, probably doesn't get enough attention: the stomach.
The argument for this comes from a really wild story from medical history. Back in the 1800s, there was this guy named Alexis St. Martin who survived a gunshot wound that, well, it left a permanent hole in his stomach. And this gave a doctor named William Beaumont this once-in-a-lifetime chance to literally watch human digestion happen in real time.
So for years, Dr. Beaumont did all these experiments, like dangling bits of food on a silk thread directly into St. Martin's stomach. And through all this, he came to one huge conclusion. A normal meal takes about 3 to 4 hours to fully digest, and after that, the stomach really benefits from an hour of just resting.
So if you do the math, it's pretty simple. 3 to 4 hours for digestion, plus 1 hour of rest, that adds up to 5 hours. And this is exactly where Oneill's recommendation comes from, leaving a minimum of 5 hours between your meals to let your digestive system do its job properly and then take a well-deserved break.
But, and this is a big but, Dr. Beaumont also saw 5 specific things that just completely gummed up the works, causing food to sit in the stomach for 8 hours or even longer. What were they? Overeating, grazing between meals, drinking a lot of liquid with your food, having alcohol, and, this one's huge, feeling strong, negative emotions like stress or anger while you eat.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Let's pull all these threads together now. What does this whole philosophy of health actually look like when you put it into practice?
One of the most practical takeaways is this model for how to structure your meals. You've probably heard it before. Eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and dinner, or tea as it's called here, like a pauper. The idea is to front-load your calories and energy for the day, which gives your body more time to rest and digest at night. So to sum it all up, the whole philosophy really boils down to these core ideas. First, turn off the tap. Stop putting harmful stuff in. Second, make restorative sleep a priority so your body can actually repair itself. Third, give your stomach that 5-hour break between meals. And ultimately, all of this is about getting to the root causes of health problems instead of just chasing symptoms.
And that really brings us to the big central question that wraps this whole approach up. If it's true that the body is designed to heal itself, what could happen if we just focused all our energy on removing the obstacles that are getting in its way? It's a pretty powerful thought to leave you with. Thanks for tuning into this Explain It.